Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to 2021. It's fantastic to see you all. So today we're running this like a meeting and we have got a very special guest for you today. So the reason that we are doing this like a meeting is because Alan is going to put you into breakout rooms and we're going to be doing lots of sort of interactive and participation like a workshop. Normally we just have a presentation where the speaker just speaks to you. So this time we're actually going to be getting you guys to speak and participate. So you probably know me. My name is Danielle Stein Fairhurst. I'm a financial modelling specialist based here in Sydney, Australia. And the fantastic speaker that we've got in store for you today is Alan Cameron-Sweeney. So I have actually met Alan face to face. We've actually, it's becoming quite a rare commodity to have somebody or have a guest who we've actually met in person. So Alan and I know each other from the CPA circuit, and I was actually lucky enough to have Alan as a speaker from our Melbourne meetup. Do you remember that, Alan?
I do indeed.
It was quite some time ago. Seems like a lifetime ago now. So I'm going to pass you over to Alan in a minute, but I'll just tell you a little bit about him if you don't know. He is a financial accountant, a raconteur, you'll be glad to know. By day, though, he is a virtual workshops and keynote speaker, and he is the host of the Lone Wolf for Introverts podcast. I don't know about you guys, but I do identify a little bit as an introvert. I think it is something to do with the technical skills that we have as modelers and analysts. We do tend to spend a lot of time by ourselves, and we're very, very detailed, focused people. So we are often introverts, and Alan is going to, that is his specialization, is dealing with the skills for introverts like us. So Alan has a background in finance business partnering, which is what he mainly does nowadays. And he now specializes in helping accountants to make the leap from adding up to adding value. So I'm going to pass over to you, Alan. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Daniela, and hello to everybody. Great to see all your lovely faces here. We are going to be doing lots of interactivity, as Daniela mentioned. And to start, I do want to get you typing in the comments. So could I get you all to type yay in the comments? And you can do this whenever you like something in our mini workshop. Now, I do have a lovely assistant with me. Her name is Claire. You can see her hand there. I mainly call her my lovely assistant because she is my wife. But we are a finance match made in heaven, because obviously I've been in finance for 15 years and Claire has been a writer in finance for over 10 years, and she now works at CPA Australia as a writer. So you will hear her voice from time to time when she's reading out your answers from my questions. So the first question I have for you, to give a bit of context to me, is what is your job role? What is your job role, please? If you could write that in the comments, that would be fantastic.
So what about if we're looking for work or not working?
If you're not working, what is your title you're aspiring to be? So that way you can take some of what you know today and some of that language, and that will help you in your interviews. Have we any brave people who are commenting yet, please, Claire?
Greetings to all. We certainly do, Alan. We've got a people reporting analyst, corporate finance, internal auditor, financial controller, financial modeler, retail operations GM, data scientist, finance manager, customer software developer, and the list goes on, director of corporate services.
Fantastic. That's quite a widespread group we have today. So the title of this talk was Finance Storytelling, Giving Senior Leaders What They Need. And from one aspect, I will be talking about it from presenting kind of financial numbers to a senior leader, but this storytelling technique will work for any kind of brief you are going to give somebody in business to ensure you're giving them something that's going to impact what you're talking about and impact the business. So, second question I have for you. When finance people communicate to senior leaders, how do you think those senior leaders feel? Are they happy? Are they ecstatic? Are they underwhelmed? Are they a bit sad? Are they just not happy? What do you think? If you can type in the comments how you think people feel when finance communicate.
Yeah, so some of the comments are bored and lost, mostly confused, depends on the message. I'll absolutely agree with that one. Too embarrassed to say they don't understand, enthusiastic about the numbers, it depends on their background, speaking their own language comes across. Only want to listen if the message is good, challenged, and suspicious. We've got suspicious.
Suspicious.
Pretending they understand.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just sometimes just nod along when they're not finance people. And I tell you, how do I think senior leaders feel when finance communicates to them? I think this is how they feel. Senior leaders can't get any satisfaction. And why do I say this? Well, back in the good old days of face-to-face, I was doing a workshop for CPA Australia, and I was improving financial reporting. And at the end of it, we did an activity. So it was going to be a role play. And I was going to be the CFO. And I had been away on holidays for 3 weeks. I had no internet, no phone connection. So I didn't know anything, but sales in that 3 weeks had dropped 30%. I was coming back to work and I was going to have to go straight in to an executive meeting to talk about these results. So what we did with each of them was we said, okay, you're going to have time to prepare a report and you're going to have 1 minute to prep me before I go into the executive meeting. So we gave the groups plenty of time. They had about half an hour and they worked in groups of 6. And then one by one, they came up and they gave me their 1 minute pitch. And, they told me what happened and they'd drawn some lovely dashboard style reports and gave me some trends and things like that. But what did no team give me? What did no team give me? In the comments, guys, what did no team give me before I went in to my executive meeting?
Money. One simple message. That's the why. Good news. The key reason sales had dropped. Storytelling.
Storytelling. They definitely didn't do storytelling. Well, there's a few good points in there that do add up.
What happens next?
Anna. What happens next? Anna. Well done, Anna. You're a bright star. Maybe you could help present this workshop with me.
Hey.
No disrespect to my lovely wife. Solutions. Nobody told me what we were going to do about the problem. So me as the CFO, I was going to go into this meeting and the CEO would say, okay, what's happened? And I'd say, well, sales have dropped 30%. And he'd say, why? Well, maybe for whatever good reason, the competitors had great sales on, etc., etc. And he'd be fine. Join the meeting. But then he'd say, okay, Alan, what are we going to do about it? And I'd say, well, don't know. I've been on a beach for the last 3 weeks and my team hasn't given me any solutions. So as a CFO, I wouldn't get very far if I can't tell the other execs what the solutions are, or at least what the next steps in the process are going to be. And as Daniela mentioned earlier, I help people, go from producing the numbers to using the numbers. And this is kind of this shift that's been with business partnering probably in the last, 10 years since automation has come along. I definitely wasn't trained to give solutions. I know a lot of accountants haven't been, or analysts. So that's kind of the first issue we're dealing with today, is giving solutions, giving things that are going to impact the business to help senior leaders move forward. The second part is, when finance staff do communicate, do we communicate with clarity? And I don't think we do. I don't think I did, earlier in my career. And I know I never got any training on how to communicate. I don't know many accountants that have. So that is something that we can really work on. A few years back, I was working in Asahi and Schweppes in Melbourne, and they've got $1 billion turnover. I was working in the finance transformation team, and I was building the executive scorecard. And one large part of the project was obviously agreeing what metrics went onto it. And then I designed a dashboard. So I read up on all the gurus of the data visualization world, and my favorite being Stephen Few. And as my boss said to me, Alan, how sexy can you make this dashboard? Guys, it was sexy. It was the business, all right? And I thought, this is going to look beautiful on top of the executive reporting hack. Now, as you may or may not know, a dashboard report should be, on one thing on a page, at a glance reporting. I saw the final version. So they took my dashboard and they squished it up to 2/3. And then on the other third, they tried to fit commentary for 25 metrics. So someone in the comments there earlier said about, what do you think about when we communicate? There was no single message. There was no clarity. It wasn't easy to interpret. It will confuse the best of finance people. It just wasn't good. So that's the second thing we're going to look at, is how to communicate the solutions simply. All right. So now we are going to go into our first breakout room. And what I would like you all to discuss is, if you could give senior leaders more solutions and communicate them with clarity, what would that do for your career? If you could communicate to senior leaders more solutions and with clarity, what would that do for your career? Now, with the breakout rooms, this all happens automatically. I can tell you, no one's ever been lost in the breakout rooms. 5 of you will go into a room. You'll have 5 minutes. With 1 minute to go, a warning will come up saying 60 seconds left. You can ignore that. It's going to bring you all back here automatically. So now I'm going to get Claire to trigger the breakout rooms, and we will see you in 5. 1 or 2 of you, and not what you said in the breakout room, but what did you hear others say in the breakout room? So if you'd like to contribute, if you could raise your hand, and Claire will get someone to come off mute for us.
Evan Davies.
Evan.
G'day, Alan.
How you going? Good?
Very good, thanks you, mate.
So what did you hear in your group?
So we had, I guess, amongst the group had a wide range of different backgrounds, which made the conversation really interesting because everyone was coming from a different perspective. But I think the one of them, which I thought was a really interesting point, was being able to communicate with solutions and with clarity makes your whole role and makes the whole environment more enjoyable. People feel like it's a more collaborative conversation. It makes your role as the financial provider as well as the receiver just a whole much more enjoyable environment. So I thought that was a really good point to kick off with. Simplification was another good one. Being able to have a really simple message just allowed people to really catch on quick with the theme of what we're talking about and be able to make decisions based on that. And the last one was around, I guess, if you are the financial provider and you can speak with solutions and clarity, it improves your valuability in the business. You will be included in a lot more of those environments and those discussions ongoing. I think both ways, that adds to the enjoyableness of all of that.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you very much, Evan. And I think to latch on to that last point, if you can communicate solutions and with clarity, you are going to be involved in a lot more conversations. A lot more people are going to come to you. You're going to have a lot more influence around the organization, and then your stock is going to rise because it's going to set you apart from people who aren't communicating with clarity and aren't communicating solutions. So now we're going to get into the first part of this. So people have often spoken about, tell the story of the numbers. And to be honest, maybe I'm just a little bit dumb sometimes, and my wife probably agrees. I just couldn't tell what people were really on about. I'm very kind of practical minded, and I like a good set of instructions or a visual, right? So as I have a background in data visualization, I love to learn visually. So when I was thinking about how can we tell the story of numbers, I was looking up visual storytelling. And I came across a lecturer called Kurt Van Nout, and he visualized stories that you will hear everywhere. And it's a pretty simple process, but I love it. And it's where kind of my research started. So he was talking about movies, right? And he said, this is a story you will hear everywhere, and you will have heard it 1,000 times, all right? So we start off with an axis. And this is the GI axis. G being for everything good in life, great health, great wealth, and whatnot. I being for ill will, ill health, and everything that's not very good. And we have our second axis. And this is the beginning and, of course, the end. And the first story that he had it's called Man in a Hole. And just an everyday average guy, and he starts a little bit above average. All right, and he's going about his day, and then all of a sudden, something bad happens. And the tension appears, and then of course, like all good stories, it's resolved, and he ends up being happier than when he started. Not a copyrighted story, you all know it. The next story is called Boy Meets Girl. And I'm sure this has happened to many of you. So, very average guy, he's going to start even a little bit lower, and he's just going about his life and nothing fantastic is happening. But he meets a girl, and his life goes up, and he's ecstatic. But of course, like all good stories, something bad happens. And he loses the girl. But is that the end of the story? Of course not. No good story doesn't have an end and a solution. So he manages to win back the girl. Ever-ending happiness. All right? And could I perhaps map one of my own stories? I could. So 11 years ago, I left Ireland. That was a relatively good day, and I came to Australia. But what did Alan do? Alan moved to Sydney. That wasn't a good idea, was it? That's an Irishman in a hole.
Hey, watch it, Alan.
Hopefully we do have a few Sydney-siders here, but how did Alan resolve the problem? He moved to Melbourne. Ever-ending happiness, guys. Well, actually, if you are, I'm sure some people aren't from Australia here, but I moved to Melbourne, and 6 months ago, I'll tell you, I found even more everlasting happiness, which is in Geelong, where we live now. But this is the basis of the shape of a story. And I saw this and I loved it. And I said, how can I turn this into business? Well, we can put a couple of layers on it and just draw it a little bit more simply for ourselves. So we have an axis, and then we have something. An incident happens, all right? An incident happens. Very clear. Yeah. Need to change my angle. Thank you very much. Keep me on the straight and narrow. There we go. An incident happens. Tension arises. And then we have a solution. So this is our incident. tension, and resolution. And there's one very important part that we haven't put in that is so important in any story, which is your audience. And why should they care? All right, so we are going to move this along and make it more solution and finance orientated, but we have a poll. Claire, if you could bring up the first poll, please. And it is, there's a mental model used by executives and senior management called what, so what, now what? And I would like to know of everybody here if you have heard of that mental model or not. So have you cued that, Claire?
Yes, people are voting as we speak.
Beautiful.
Wow, you guys are all on the ball. Everybody's voting very quickly. I think we're just about there. Shall we share the results, Claire?
Okay, so it's have you heard of what, so what, now what? Yes, 35%. No, 65%.
All right. Well, for the 65% who haven't heard of it, as I said, it is an executive model, and it's kind of the benefit of the mental models is that it's something that you can say quickly and help other people help you to progress. So what, now what? And to me, that's what senior leaders are looking for, all right? And especially that last solution. So I've drawn our new shape of a story. So if we put that in, we would have what, so what, now what? So it becomes a very simple story of what you want to be able to tell people. So what has happened? So what? If this continues, what's going to happen? And then we have now what, and we have the solution to kind of lift that tension and resolve the problem. And of course, at this intersection of what's actually happened, we have our audience. Now, and we're back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play you 2 separate music clips. And what I want to know from you is, why are they so different? Because it's the same song and it's the same singer. But I want to know, why is it so different? So I will cue the first one now. All right, folks. So in the comments, I would like to know, why is that the same version or the same song done so differently? Why is that song done so differently when it's live?
We already have some answers.
Yeah.
Jason Weber said energy. And we've also had answers, visuals, the audience, audience were part of the music, clapping along, the atmosphere, participation from the audience, the dynamics.
So it is, the dynamics, the energy and all that made it different. And why it was so different was because when the audience come to see the show, they want a show, right? You can listen to the studio version at home, but when people come out to see a show, they really want to be entertained. And that's why thinking about our audience is so important before we communicate. So, quick question. How do you, no, this is a poll, sorry. Claire, second poll, please. A little bit confused, guys. A lot of polls, a lot of questions today.
Read it out.
So, you can read it out, Claire.
Oh, do you actively think about your audience's needs before discussing results?
or we'll talk about, or if it's not results, you communicate, whether when you're communicating with stakeholders, do you think about your audience beforehand?
That last one reminded me, Alan, of the difference between running a live workshop for CPA and doing it online with no audience. Bit of a difference.
It is indeed.
All right, so yes from 85% and no from 15%.
All right, that is a fantastic result if you're already thinking about your audience that much. But there's two things I want to talk about, and hopefully even the 85% that do think about it will get something out of this. So to talk about our audience, I need to tell you about my son. So my son Leopold, he was born 3 months early. So most babies, if you don't know, weigh about 3.4 kilos. Leopold weighed 663 grams. He was tiny, right? And after 9 long months, Leopold eventually came home. And even then, Leopold was still on oxygen. And he had an oxygen monitor that had his own little dashboard. And if something went wrong with his oxygen and he wasn't getting enough, the machine would beep. And Leopold, he also ate through a feeding tube through his nose. And if that machine ran out of feed, it too would beep. And then Leopold, if he didn't have enough things wrong with him, he would puke on himself about 6 times a day. And then, of course, we have my great little dog, Trilby. And if the postman comes, or anybody comes for that matter, he goes absolutely mental. So the house could get a little bit mad with the oxygen monitor going, the feeding machine beeping, Leopold puking all over himself, and the dog losing his tiny little mind. So to take the stress out of it, we ended up having a saying in our house, like, does Leopold have oxygen? Because that's all that actually matters. The feeding machine can wait. He can sit in his own puke, and well, the dog can do whatever the dog does. We agreed on what mattered with Leopold. And this is what I find doesn't happen enough in business. We don't sit down and actually agree on the metrics that matter. Now, I'm hoping with 85% of you thinking about your audience beforehand that hopefully you have agreed those metrics. And normally in a face-to-face talk, I ask the audience, to put up your hand. Do you agree on the metrics that matter? And I was talking over at CPA Australia and New Zealand, and out of 80 people, only one lady put up her hand. And I said, yes, what's the secret to agreeing on these metrics? And she says, well, I work for myself. But I think that might be a little bit of a cop-out, but we need to agree on the metrics. Now, I will say a lot of people ask me, just as a side point, how is Leopold doing? He's doing well, and as a dad, I tried to give him the best start in life. So I gave him a really good name, right? Leopold Rupert Cameron-Sweeney. So when he grows up, I think he's either going to be a CEO or a prick. One or the other with a name like that. Sometimes my wife says, what's the difference? But who knows? Now, second thing about the audience. And I'm going to keep it on point here with hospitals. When I was growing up as a teenager in Ireland, I played an awful lot of sport, and I was very injury prone. As you see, I've got some dodgy fingers. My knuckles are all smashed from playing an Irish game with sticks. I've fractured my arms, dislocated my thumbs. I've stitches many times over in my face. One day I was about 16 and my mom just dropped me off to the hospital. I suspected I fractured my arm. And as you do, I went into the emergency department and they said, yeah, you might get seen in about maybe 4 or 5 hours. About 6 hours went past, then a doctor came out, or not a doctor, sorry, the triage nurse came out to me and she said, look, we've had a lot of serious injuries come in. you're not going to be seen today. You may as well go home and come back tomorrow. And I was kind of like a bit annoyed, like, because my fractured arm, this was the biggest priority in my life at the time, was my fractured arm. But to the hospital, it was really far down. It was so far down their list of priorities, they told me to go home. And this is the thing when we talk about knowing our audience, in knowing that what we're talking about to them is actually relevant. I'm sure you've all heard people tell you stories you're not interested in, and we all know how boring that is. And I think earlier on, one of the comments was our audiences of senior leaders can often be bored. So what's a priority to you may not even be on the radar of your audience if they've got bigger fires to put out. But of course, these are things we need to know about. And an example of this goes back to the transformation project at Sweps and Asahi. Myself and the boss, we prepared the financial results, and we went and spoke to the senior leader, and we'd been worried because we'd been 2% over budget, and we did actually come up with some solutions. And we went and talked to him, and he said, 2% over, well, my either side plus or minus is 10%, so I don't mind. So one, we didn't know the meaningful metric. And two, he said, if you're only 2% over, I've definitely got other projects with massive problems that I have to go. So the meeting actually lasted about 2 minutes because what we were talking about wasn't actually relevant. So now we're going to go back into the breakout rooms. I'm going to keep it a bit shorter this time since 85% of your audience, 85% of you do know a lot about your audience. But what I'd like you to talk about is what could you do to find out about your audience, to know that you've got meaningful metrics and know that you are relevant? What could you do with your audience, find out from your audience to agree on metrics and find out if you're being relevant? So we'll send you into the breakout rooms now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, option. Back. I hope you enjoyed your conversation. And very quickly again, I'd like to hear what other people said in your room. So if we could have someone with the hand up to come off mute. Claire, could you pick a lovely face there, please?
A lovely face, there's many. Let's have a look. And oh, we have a couple, all right. Benita Verdi has a hand up. There we go,
Yes,
Benita.
hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello, Benita. So what did you hear others in your group say?
The first thing that came was like ask the audience themselves. I think that's the best way. And then, of course, once you ask the audience, like sometimes audience might not know themselves, what exactly do they want. So we kind of have to balance between what their expectations are and what you can offer.
Yeah, for sure. It's a mix. Yeah, have you got someone else, Claire? Thank you very
Thank you. We have Taiwo or Taiwo. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Good morning. Incidentally, I was in the same room with the lady that just spoke. So what we agreed was that actually we have to have a conversation with the team, with the business guys, and let us understand what are their expectations and what we can offer, the gap between what they can offer and what their expectations are, so that we make a balance and agreed on the metrics.
Yeah, fantastic. And that is, I think it's the agreement is so important. And as Benita said, sometimes they don't know what they're looking for either. So there's a question you can ask them, because it's not always about the numbers. What does winning look like for you? Because, for instance, if it was a non-profit entity, you know, they also have their non-profit things to think about, not just money. And sometimes let's call a spade a spade. Some people's egos come into it in our audiences. So if you ask people to agree and ask, what does winning look like for you? It'll give you a good picture of where that person is trying to get to. And then you can hopefully agree on where you want to go and know what matters and what's actually relevant. And I think as introverts especially, some of these conversations can be difficult if we don't know the stakeholders, or what I often find the hardest part for people is if it's with the senior stakeholders. I've had colleagues back in the day in work go, oh, I need to go and talk to such and such senior leader. Alan, you know him from the projects. Can you go have the conversation? Because they were kind of afraid to have that conversation. And I too would have been in that spot when I was more junior. I'm sure some of you in the workshop today have been in that situation or are in that situation where you're kind of afraid to talk to the senior leaders that don't have the confidence. So we don't have time to go through how you can prepare for one of those conversations today, but I do have a resource for you, and it is on my podcast. I will give you a link at the end on how introverts can prepare for difficult conversations. It's a half-an-hour episode of myself and Claire. It is geared towards business outcomes, but it's the bonus of us working through preparing for a difficult conversation that related to court, actually, because somebody in this room, their mother is estranged and their mother has applied to get access to our son. And it's not my mum because she's in Ireland, so I wondered who mum it is. But there you go. It's a half-an-hour episode that will help you, give you 6 steps to prepare for difficult conversations.
I'll send out a link to that episode in the email together with the recording.
Beautiful. Because what that's going to help you with, I'll briefly touch on solutions as well, because what I really want to get to in the essence of time is how you put a report together for the storytelling. But with solutions, the hardest part with solutions can be, again, dealing with your stakeholders, identifying and telling them that things are kind of wrong, and then they take offense and they think they're doing a bad job, etc. So to be able to challenge the numbers or challenge ideas from our stakeholders, we need to be able to have difficult conversations. So that'll help you getting to know your audience and also challenging the numbers. All right. So next we are going to move on to how we make a report into a story. And I do have to give credit where credit is due. This phrase and some of my thoughts on this come from this great book, Storytelling with Data, Let's Practice. And
oh my gosh, she's one of my favorite authors. You've got to read that book. Can you pronounce her name
for me then?
Cole Nussbaumer-Knaflic.
Yeah, and there's 2 versions. She has 2 books, but I tell you, so this was her first book and this is her second book. I really recommend the second book more because it has all the practice activities. It has, and I feel it has a lot of the content of the first book. So if you're going to get one, get that one. Yes. So let's do report to story. So to start, we have another little piece of music. And what I want to know, the question I have for you, which I'll get you to answer in the comments, is what makes this song, what makes the message so easy to understand? What makes the message in this song so easy to understand?
We're not hearing any music, Alan.
Oh, there's no music. Oh, wait.
But we get the idea.
You get the idea. The song was War, What Is It Good For? So apologies you couldn't hear the music. The gist of it is, the song is absolutely nail on the head. If my mother listens to that, she will know the message is war. What is it good for? It's not some fancy poem where the message is hidden. It's right nail on the head. And that's where we want to get to. So we're going to take a small example and we're going to apply it to our...
Alan, sorry, can you just turn your microphone back to the way you had it before, because it's not as clear as it was.
Is it better now?
Loads better.
Loads better. Beautiful. Thank you for that, Daniela. So what we want to do, we're going to apply, I've got a simple scenario and we're going to draw out a storytelling model that you could use for presentation that will be simple to do in Excel and that you can use to present information to your stakeholders and senior leaders. All right. So let's draw our axis, all right? So this is dollars, and then we have time. We'll say this is year to date. So very simply, we work in a manufacturing business, and we're the business partner to the manufacturing line, and the overtime bill has skyrocketed, all right? So for the first few months, it was fine. We've had the inciting incident, and we're here. Things aren't good. Now, so this is our what has happened. Our overtime bill is too high. And then if you forecast out, so what? Well, we're going to keep losing money if we keep having this overtime bill. So then, of course, we do some root cause analysis. Why have we got so much overtime? And from your conversations with your stakeholders, it's because the machines are old on the production line. They keep breaking down. And in order to meet the production demands, we have to work overtime. So you go, that's fine. Then we go into solution mode with our stakeholders. So what would solve the problem? We could buy some new machinery. We could obviously replace the old ones. Then a couple of options. We've got one that will just about bring us back to where we were. But of course, technology moves on. We could buy a more expensive machine, more efficient again. And lastly, we have a third option that you're probably recommending because it's going to be so much more efficient. And that's great. But again, we need to think about who? Our audience. Think about who's going to pay for the capital expenditure. Now, I'm sure you've all worked in organizations where some years the infrastructure or the capital money is there and some years it's not. Some stakeholders are, or some businesses even, should I say, are very focused on P&L. Some are focused on cash. So if there was lots of cash and lots of infrastructure money there, it would be, a no-brainer to recommend going to number 3 because you have the money. But if there's no infrastructure money, it might be going for option 1, which is gets you back to where you started and is a lot cheaper. But of course, that comes back to what's relevant. What's relevant in the business today? And you'll get to know that from talking to your stakeholders. And then lastly, to make your communications have some clarity, of course, you could have a small headline of your summary of the what, so what, now what. So at a glance, really quickly, someone can go, okay, this is what's happened. This is going to be the impact. This is the solution. And this is your backup to it. So course, in Excel, this would be quite easy to do. If you've got a year of data, you've got your actuals to here, and then you've got a couple of extra rows where you've done out with your initial forecast and then your alternate forecasts for the other solutions. So pretty straightforward to make this one in Excel.
Yes, I really liked the title that you've put across the top. That was one of the things I learned from Cole, actually, was having, rather than just a title, to actually put the now what and the so what as part of the chart. I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah, no, that it definitely it reminds me that it was in Cole's book, and also from a boss of mine, depending if your business lives in PowerPoint decks or not. If you ever notice in PowerPoint decks in business that there's a lot of writing on the top headers to explain, with the idea behind it being, if a senior leader doesn't have a lot of time, they can read the headlines of each of the PowerPoint slides and then decides what's truly relevant for them on that day. So that really helps senior leaders when, if they've only got 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, So now, folks, I would like to know, does this make sense, or is there any questions? Happy to take questions on this or anything we've covered today. You can type a question and maybe Claire will read it out if there's any questions. We've kind of got 3 layers to this, which is our what, so what, now what. Obviously, I offer talks like this. If your business is looking for speakers for a conference this year, or putting on training, and also just essentially the what, so what, now what, it sits over business partnering, right? So the what really comes down to how you're finding the issues in the business. So a lot of data visualization and discovery, and getting your reports right and getting metrics agreed. The so what, a lot of it comes down to being really good at root cause analysis and other tools like that, and being able to communicate with clarity in your writing and your commentary. Then, of course, as we mentioned with solutions, the now what comes down to knowing how to deal with your stakeholders, have difficult conversations, how to assess your stakeholders' numbers, and be, commercially savvy and be able to have those conversations and have those relationship skills, and that'll really build your influence. So if you or your business is interested in having a discussion about your needs, please do contact me. Claire will put my email in the comment box, and I'm sure Daniela will also send it out. So Claire, have you got any questions since? No.
No, but I think it's so, I just think it's such a relevant skill. I know we've got people that come from so many different industries and different roles, and I think that being able to tell a story is something that doesn't always come naturally, and we don't always think about how we can relate that to a business environment. And I think that particularly for introverts or for anyone needing to give a presentation, to actually go through that sort of storytelling technique is going to be really, really useful.
I think we have a question.
Dave Graff asked, what is the functionality within the storytelling? Does the point of the message come into the fray?
Does the point of the message come into the fray? So the point of the message, well, that's it. It's an interesting point. The point of the message, it's a good question. I don't know if I'm confused by it or I know what to tell you. So the point of the message, I would say, well, what is our, I would ask this question. What is the role of a finance team? To me, the role of the finance team is to help the rest of the business make better decisions. And finance teams add value by helping others make better decisions. So the point of the message here is, this particular basic example is, we're trying to help our stakeholders make the best decisions. And we're letting them know the options, and we're letting them know where each of these machines, how efficient they'll be and what money will they save us. But then additionally, we're having to think about, does the entity have the cash. So the point of the message for finance should be, am I helping you make a better decision?
There's one more real quick question.
Yeah.
Jerome Fink asks, what happens if the news is good and if the graph doesn't point downwards at any point?
So if you've ever been in a meeting where people say, everything's on budget, all right, short meeting, see you later. We often actually don't focus enough on what's working well. And part of this is actually a focus when I'm delivering training. So when you're looking at reports and you're going, okay, people ignore the what's doing well and only look at the bad. But you can go and add value by looking at, why is this doing so well? Where could we take what's doing well here and help apply those same principles to other facets of the business? So just because something's doing well doesn't mean you can't do it even better. And I think there's value to be added there again and going, we're doing really well here. How can we help this to make us make better decisions in other parts of the business? Hopefully
I think
that answers the question.
That's really the skill, is being able to take that story and bringing the story out of the data and communicating it.
Yeah. Is that all the questions, Claire? All right.
That's probably all
if
we
there's
have
no
time
more
for.
questions, guys, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Alan. That was absolutely fascinating. I really enjoyed the session. I knew that I would. So thank you everyone for participating today. It was a bit of a different session. So thank you so much for rolling with it and for all of your participation. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. I will send out, thank you. Yes, I will send out links to the podcast, to the book that we mentioned, as well as a copy of the recording. And I'm hosting another webinar tomorrow night, and we've got another live virtual meetup coming up exactly at the same time next week, next Wednesday. So I will look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.